Jerry Thompson. I believe he won a Grand Prix in Denver in 2008.
He might have in fact done that, yes.
So maybe he'll win another one in this fine city. Jacob Wilson is on a Rug Delver deck. And Jerry Thompson is on a Shardless Agent Bug deck.
Yes.
Ponder comes down for Jacob Wilson here. Looks like he'll keep it and draw a card, pass it back to Jerry. So, have you gotten a good look at Jerry's deck? You know how it operates?
Yeah. It's actually a very interesting take on the bug. Using the Shardless Agent, the Plane Chase rare, it's basically just a 3-mana 2/2, comes into play and cascades. Is basically its version of Bloodbraid Elf. It's just a card that the deck wants to play for pure value. It cascades into cards like Abrupt Decay and Hymn to Turok. Occasionally you get Tarmogoyf off of it. It's just, you're basically, it's the exact same card as Bloodbraid Elf is for Jund, but you get to play it in the bug skeleton, which is very, very beneficial in Legacy considering how powerful that deck archetype is.
Yep. And if you're really lucky, you get to cascade into Ancestral Visions.
Oh, we don't. The pipe dream. You don't speak of it because if you do, it doesn't happen.
So turn 2 Tarmogoyf for Jacob. And right now that Tarmogoyf is a 2/3. There's sorcery and land in graveyards.
Jerry's sitting, got at least a Maelstrom Pulse for future turns if he potentially wants to hit it. He's got to be really careful about how he plays his turns too, because he's got Tarmogoyf in his deck and Maelstrom Pulse. I've definitely seen in a feature match in a top 8 a player Maelstrom Pulse an opponent's permanent when they had one themselves in play, and that did not work out too well. Jerry is a fairly skilled player to say the least, though, so I doubt he'll be making that error.
Did Jerry just draw, fetch, and pass here? Looks like Jacob drew a card, so.
Yeah, and his lands are untapped as well.
Exactly sure. I think he was he was afraid of Stifle, so he played his land, cracked it.
Yeah.
But Wasteland comes down. In response, Jerry's going to Abrupt Decay, destroying that Tarmogoyf.
Abrupt Decay is so good in Legacy. Literally every card, like all cards in Legacy that punish you for playing very deep spells are incredibly powerful.
I mean, Counterbalance Top was, the de facto way of locking people out of this format.
Yep.
Ancestral Visions get suspended by Jerry.
The hard way.
And pattern back that Misty Range. So playing around Stifle earlier, we'll continue around it.
Yeah.
Delver of Secrets comes down for Jake. And then Ancestral Visions ticks down. Jerry draws Brainstorm.
So that Wasteland came down, so Jake didn't play a land on his turn?
I believe so. Unless, I thought he drew the Brainstorm, he could have drawn the Wasteland. But now Jerry's in an interesting place. He doesn't want to activate that Wasteland because he's still in fear of Stifle. So instead, he's just going to cast that Tarmogoyf. It's going to get dazed. Jerry's going to crack that fetch. That's going to get stifled. And Jacob's able to get rid of that Tarmogoyf. Delver triggers. Is it going to transform? I think he's thinking about whether or not he wants to Brainstorm.
Yeah, with the trigger on the stack.
That's what he does.
All right. So that Delver is certainly flipping on this turn. Let's see what he intends to actually reveal to Jerry.
Looks like he's going to reveal Lightning Bolt, hiding a second Stifle underneath the Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, that's a fairly good decision. Card's not terribly relevant, Lightning Bolt, and at least as far as killing creatures goes against Jerry's deck.
Plays Tropical Island, attacks him for 3, dropping Jerry down to 15. Then Jerry removes another suspend counter from the Ancestral Visions. So now Jerry does have that Maelstrom Pulse at his disposal. He's also got Tarmogoyf and a Brainstorm and a Shardless Agent. He'll just use Maelstrom Pulse to get rid of, or attempt to get rid of the Insectile Aberration.
It's likely going to eat a Daze.
Yeah, there's a Daze in Jacob's hand. He's trying to figure out if he wants to return an island to cast it, and that's what he'll do.
That Stifle that he's got hiding on the top of his deck is going to provide. Does he have that 2 in hand?
Yeah, he's got Stifle, Lightning Bolt, Ponder, Volcanic Island.
So he has 1 for the Wasteland eventually and 1 for the Ancestral when it comes off of suspend.
Yep.
Pretty strong. So is double Force of Will.
And since he still has that pressure with Insectile Aberration, Jerry's sitting at 15. He just has to fade 5 turns.
Yeah, and that's a perfect 3 cards to be able to do that. You've got the Counterspell Disruption as well as Land Destruction to keep Jerry off of doing anything particularly ridiculous.
Jacob likely just going to play Volcanic Attack and pass here, holding up Stifle and Force of Will. Yeah. There's no reason to cast that Ponder because that would leave him with no blue spells he really wants to remove to Force of Will.
Yeah.
or exiled. Jerry's got some pressure himself. That Shardless Agent is probably the thing he's going to try casting this turn.
He's going to get maximum value first, though. Brainstorm into a land. He gets to set up what his Cascade is going to be, so it's potentially Cascade into Tarmogoyf.
Remember, there are no spectators in the Grand Prix area.
The interesting thing is, if Jacob wants to stifle the Cascade, he can do that.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
I'm not sure if he wants to do that. But
a smorgasbord of decisions to make with that Stifle, because he's got 3 very good targets for it. Assuming, well, counting that Shardless Agent.
the interesting thing is if he stifles the Cascade, then Jerry just immediately is going to use that Wasteland on probably the Volcanic Island. Maybe the Tropical.
Well, he revealed the Lightning Bolt, so he knows that at least exists. So he's currently at a virtual 9 life, which kill. I mean, it's a turn.
Yeah.
It's possible here that Jerry, did he keep the sack land? Yeah. Try to bait out the Stifle. If his opponent stifles, he can either. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
the Tarmogoyf is coming into play regardless.
Jacob uses the Stifle on the polluted Delta, and Jerry just casts Tarmogoyf instead.
Interesting.
Tarmogoyf here has got to be, what, a 3-4 or 4-5?
Let's see. Instant, land, sorcery. Is there a creature in the bin yet?
Not sure. Trying to remember if something got killed. So Ancestral Vision, just like you said, that's going to get stifled, so it's never going to be removed from the exile zone.
Yeah.
There's a Tarmogoyf in Jacob Wilson's
okay. So 4.
graveyard. Not quite enough to raise, but with that second Tarmogoyf, just maybe barely enough.
Yeah, probably. I've been like using it for mana the whole game.
Yeah. I mean, Jerry has
I feel like I probably
one
forgot
more
that
turn.
turn, the next
Yeah.
turn, be like, oh shit, yeah.
Because he knows about the Lightning Bolt.
right.
This is mostly.
So he can,
Didn't really matter.
probably his best bet here is to play Shardless Agent and
It's like
hope for the best, but he doesn't have a blue mana to do
Not
that.
anymore. Yeah, no, his best bet is now to draw a blue mana source on his next turn, which he know the next card of his library from that Brainstorm still, I think.
No, that he shuffled that away with Blue Delta.
Oh, did okay, yeah.
So yeah, Jerry's at 5.
Wait, no, didn't the Delta get stifled?
Oh, you're right. Jerry's seen enough either way.
Okay.
And Jacob Wilson takes game 1 here in round 11 of Grand Prix Denver.
It's a very interesting matchup here. It's 2 of the kind of omnipresent decks that you see in Legacy. Like Rug Delver is the old kid on the block, I guess you'd say. The current Bug Delver deck is an evolution of that old Team America deck, I guess it was called once upon a time. It is like the Tombstalker version we saw from Daniel Duterte earlier. Delver is just an absolutely amazing card, like a very, very quick clock.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, it's insane that the best cards, or the best creatures in this format cost either 1 mana or a billion D mana. You choose. I mean, you've got the Deathrite Shaman, which is secretly probably the second best card in Legacy. Like, maybe I think Jace might have him beats, but like, the card is about as everywhere as Lingering Souls was when we were talking about how Lingering Souls was dominating every single format, and yet no one talks about it with the same reverential tones as they did, simply because it's not the one that's attacking you for 4. It doesn't seem like it's winning you the game when it's actually giving you so much advantage over the course of the game, and disrupting your opponent just destroys.
Yeah, the thing about Deathrite Shaman that I've noticed is, like, you think about all of these old decks and the powerful cards that they used, and all of them are just affected by splash damage thanks to Deathrite Shaman. Like, I was thinking, oh, why does nobody play Reanimator anymore? Oh, right, Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah.
Oh, Icrid, the Dredge decks, they do worse because of Deathrite Shaman.
Yep.
Neither Reliquary decks, Deathrite Shaman.
On top of that, I mean, it's what do you think an opponent's average starting life total, counting like self damage over the course of a game is in Legacy? You've got Sacklands, you've got Thoughtseizes everywhere, you've got cards like Gitaxian Probe in a lot of the combo decks. So you've got these cards that are dealing a lot of damage to you, and I mean, it's people called its like 2 life loss ability like a worse version of Grim Lavamancer because it can't hit creatures, but who cares about hitting creatures? Like, we saw, I mean, multiple matches that we've seen have come down to like the Shaman hitting people for 12 over the course of 6 turns. It's just ridiculous. And it's the disruption aspect of it that really makes it such a powerful, powerful card.
On the other side of the feature match area, you see Sam Pardee facing off against Pat Cox. Pat Cox is on Jund. Sam is good friends with Jacob Wilson. They live fairly close to each other. He's also playing the Rug Delver deck that Jacob Wilson's playing.
I really like that deck. It's like the Rug Delver deck is one of those sneaky decks because it's got cards in it that you think should be powerful in Legacy. Like it's running Lightning Bolt. Like you shouldn't be able to win with Lightning Bolt in Legacy unless your name is Patrick Sullivan. But I mean, it's got those cards to back up the aggressive 1-2 punch of Delver Tarmogoyf, and it's like effectively cuts a turn or two off of the clock. It's why it's been a mainstay forever. Pat is a master, by the way, of finishing up his first game at the exact same time as the other first match is finished up, completely disabling us from being able to switch over and watch the second match in the meantime.
Well, our match looks like they're drawing their opening hands. So maybe we can get back to the action of Jerry Thompson versus Jacob Wilson. And Jerry's going to start things off with Creeping Tar Pit, that manland from Worldwake. It's making an appearance here in Legacy. You don't see it too often.
That's another card kind of like Lightning Bolt. It gives the game a little bit of a finishing edge in addition to fixing the mana.
The other thing is it's really good against Jace, Mind Sculptor.
Very, very true, which is one of the best cards, if not the best card in the format.
So turn 2 Thoughtseize for Jerry. It's going to reveal Jacob's hand of Wasteland Tarmogoyf, Lightning Bolt, 2 Stifles, 2 Force of Wills.
It's the ever-present decision you have to make of whether you're going to counterspell your opponent's discard spell or not with your Force of Will. Like, do you want to give them 2 for 1, or do you just want to let them pick 1 and get perfect information from that point?
I mean, the reason why Jacob might do that is it seems very easy for Jerry to just take the Tarmogoyf here and leave Jacob with no pressure.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, Jerry doesn't really have anything, and like he has no pressure of his own, and Jacob has more in his deck.
Are you going to respond to mine?
This is, yeah, I mean, Jerry definitely takes the Tarmogoyf, but...
Well, unless Jerry has another hand destruction spell. If he's got a second Thoughtseize, then he might try to take Stifle or Force of Will.
Yeah, he might take Stifle, actually, because he does at least 2 sacklands in his hand, I think. So, like 2 Misty Rainforests. Having your opponent have double Stifle is kind of a problem. If they cast 1 and you take the other one, then he's left with just a single Force of Will instead of, I mean, simply taking a blue card prevents him from being able to have double Force of Will immediately.
Lightning Bolt.
Yeah,
Lightning
Jerry takes
Bolt.
Lightning Bolt? Wow.
So interesting.
Another Wasteland drawn for Jacob Wilson. He's going to use it on the Creeping Tar Pit. That's one of the disadvantages to playing those 9 basic lands.
Yeah. All right, Jerry knows what he's getting into here. He knows he's facing down 2 Force of Wills and 2 Stifles. So, sacrifice that. Your decision.
Yep, I'm at 17.
Play here is, yes, almost certainly to Stifle.
Jerry doesn't want to... I guess it doesn't matter too much. I'll stay.
Mana Disruption is incredibly powerful in this format. Everybody's trying to do 3 colors worth of things, and a lot of times, I mean, you don't, it's weird that Mana Denial can be good when you're just trying to cast like 1-drops and 2-drops, and yet it's still a powerful enough because it just slows people down, and all you need is turns. Like you're basically just adding 2 or 3 turns to the game for every Stifle you cast on a sackland.
Deathrite Shaman comes down for Jerry.
Powerful. That's now we know why he took the Lightning Bolts.
Yeah, he'll be able to generate a lot of mana off of that.
Yeah.
Which will give him mana advantage against Jacob Wilson.
You have to force. You actually have to force a will. That's really weird. I mean, it shouldn't be weird because the card's ridiculously good.
The Stifle or the Force Will?
He's cracked both of the. I mean, you probably remove the other Force Will.
Right, but you've got to be afraid of Wasteland if you only have 1 land. But Jacob Wilson here removes Stifle, countering the Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's why you would leave the Force of Will. That way you have the Stifle to stop the Wasteland. But then again,
Jerry draws Brainstorm for his turn.
interesting.
I think he's got another Deathrite Shaman in his hand.
Wow.
And a Thoughtseize along with a Tarmogoyf that he's looking at, and 1 Liliana that he's quite a ways away from casting.
I was having an interesting conversation earlier with Steve Saden about Liliana of the Veil.
Wow. Delver of Secrets drawn off the top for Jacob, giving him another blue spell to be able to counter the Deathrite Shaman.
It's pretty lucky.
Wasteland's going to leave Jerry with no permanence, and Tarmogoyf's going to crack in there for 4 power, looks like. dropping Jerry down to 12 life. I don't think Jerry's got any more lands. And it's not like he's got Ghastly Demise or some 1-mana spell that he could use to get rid of Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, players confirm life total there, making sure that Jerry taking the proper amount of self-damage from his sack lands.
Jerry does have this Brainstorm. He'll use it immediately. He's sort of mana choked, so he doesn't want to wait till a worse time to use it.
He has a Wasteland for a second land, so he can play his own Tarmogoyf.
The following turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll still be alive at that point. And as long as Jacob hasn't drawn a Daze, which, looks still sitting on Stifle, so.
Okay. All right, so Tarmogoyf v. Tarmogoyf. Is that a Chain Lightning sitting in Jacob's hand?
I believe it is. So Jerry's light reprieve is over because the top card of his library isn't something that's going to help him here either, I don't believe.
I think it's that Liliana that was in his hand.
That card we saw, that split card, is Rough and Tumble.
Oh, Rough and Tumble, yeah.
Which is just an amazingly cool card for this Rug deck because the Pyroclasm that it casts actually doesn't hit flying creatures. So when you've got your Delvers flipped into Insectile Aberrations, you get to clear your opponent's board but leave yours alone.
Right, so Rough is 1 in a red, deal 2 damage to all non-flying creatures. Tumble is 6 mana, 5 in a red, deal 5 damage to all flying creatures.
Exactly, you get to choose what you're killing.
So Jerry's Tarmogoyf is going to block Jacob's, and then he's going to use Chain Lightning to get rid of it. 4 damage for Jacob, dropping Jerry down to 4, and he'll follow things up for Nimble Mongoose, and Jacob Wilson takes the match here, advancing to 9-2 here at Grand Prix Denver.
All right, it's a very interesting match. Like, there were more cards that were not played in that game simply because of all the fighting over like mana sources than were actually hit the board and did something in the match.
So we'll try to switch over to Sam Pardee versus Patrick Cox.
I really like Pat Cox's deck. I don't know if it's the same list that Reed Duke is running or if it's probably pretty close. That Jund deck is fairly strong, though, in this format right now. Incredible amount of disruption.
So, again, Sam Pardee is on the right-hand side of your screen. He's playing the Rug Delver deck. I think almost the same exact list that Jacob Wilson was playing.
Yep.
And the left-hand side of your screen is Patrick Cox playing a Jund deck that you saw a quick snippet of last round, about 30 seconds of. So
yeah, saw him do a lot of shuffling as well.
Nimble Mongoose attacks in for 3. We'll get those life totals updated for you guys as soon as we can. Just a GT on Pat Cox's side of the board, and he's sitting at 6 life, Pat.
Curious how many cards he's got. Yeah, if it's 2 or 3, it looks like it's probably a little more than 2. But
Life from the Loam is going to get dredged for Sam Pardee, allowing him to buy back some lands and put a couple cards in his graveyard.
Yeah, it's good because early in the game it helps you get Threshold for your Nimble Mongooses, and it also helps you get the Wasteland chain going, which, oh wow.
Double Lightning Bolt.
I'm assuming that's probably cast because it's game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pat's sitting at 6, that's 6, so.
All right.
Sam Pardee evens things up at 1 game apiece against Pat Cox.
Good old Lightning Bolt.
You were saying you were dissing Lightning Bolt earlier. You're saying that it wasn't good enough to play in Legacy.
I wasn't. I was saying it's surprising that it is good enough to play in Legacy. Like, it's 3 turns. 3 damages a turn. Like, it's a turn in this format. So every Lightning Bolt you have in your deck is like a time walk, effectively.
Sure.
So
looks like Sam Pardee's gonna take a quick bathroom break.
There's some very interesting cards in this format that I've seen play like in small numbers. Like I really like the Sylvan Libraries that you see. Like there's one in Pat Cox's deck. There was one, I want to say, in the Bug Delver deck we saw last round, or was it 2 rounds ago? 2 rounds ago. I mean, it does kind of similar things, but different things in both decks. Like it's a card advantage engine because you get an opportunity to draw cards. It lets you sift through your draw as well. It's a little bit. It seems like it's a little more powerful in the Bug Delver deck because you get to. It's like a 5th Brainstorm effectively, or I guess higher than that if you count Jace to set up for your Delver just in case you need to flip.
There's some interesting cards in Sam Pardee's deck that maybe that's a difference between him and Jacob Wilson's deck.
Drop some knowledge on me.
He's got 1 Divert in the main deck that he's playing over the 2nd spell stand. That's
okay.
That Jacob Wilson's running.
What do you think that's a concession to?
Divert is concession to the bug decks that are running around. If they go turn 1 Thoughtseize, you can divert it back to them.
Seems like it's also pretty good against the abrupt decay that everybody seems to be running, because while you can't counter it, you can certainly whip back one of your opponent's permanents, and they're almost always going to be able to hit something with that.
So yeah, divert is 1 blue mana. Change the target spell or ability, or just spell.
I think it's single target spell.
Unless that spell's controller pays 1 mana of any color.
So that's an interesting decision. I like little things like that actually seem to be. I mean, it's a decision that's fairly strong in this format right now. I mean, Spell Snare is traditionally fairly good in Legacy because, like, the critical mass of 2-drops that are just great is phenomenal. I mean, can you name a deck that we've seen play this weekend that doesn't hit at least something for that 2-mana slot? Like Dredge might be the one example of a deck that it doesn't hit an awesome card in.
Sneak and Show?
Let's see, Sneak and Show.
I don't think it's any 2-drop.
No, you might be right. That might be the other one. So,
because I remember the reason to play those decks originally was when Mental Misstep was unbanned, and it had very few 1-drops that mattered and very few 2-drops that mattered for Spell Snare and Mental Misstep.
Blank as many cards in your opponent's deck as you can.
Yeah.
But with it was a common concept or consensus amongst the pros we talked to this weekend about what they thought that the prime deck in the format, the deck to beat was. Like, virtually everybody said the Bug Delver deck, or at least Bug. There's the Delver deck, and then there's the non-Delver mid-range deck that you have seen. Like, this was the version that Jerry was playing, the Agent deck. You've got that deck that kind of is running at the front of the pack so far in this weekend, and there's so many cards in that are just great for that divert. Because I mean, Himbitarok is opponent, right? So you can't divert a him. Can you divert Thoughtseize, or is that opponent as well? Yeah. Like you can divert Cabal Therapies. There's a lot of reasonable targets.
Yeah. The thing with Thoughtseize is, even if you divert it, the person that's cast the spell still gets to choose. They still control the spell.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think a number of people know that. I heard some stories out there of people being like, just, opening their hand and giving a blank stare, and their opponent's like, well, if I were you, I would take this card.
Classy reaction, actually, really like that.
Because they can't say it, right?
Yeah.
But
let's look at these sideboards here. Really focus where we're looking at things. So on Patrick's side, looks like we've got some Pyroblasts, which very strongly, I would imagine, make it into the deck. I mean, it kills Delver of Secrets, counters all the counter spells. Do you bother with Engineered Plague for humans to shut that Delver off, or do you just not?
I think that's way too slow.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
The Umazao's Jites, on the other hand, I think.
Very strong. Yeah, certainly bring those in. He clearly bought the Life from the Loam because he doesn't have one main deck. I would imagine that was, let's see, probably because he knows he's up against Stifle and Wasteland, and he wants to make sure that he can come back.
Sure. On Sam's side,
I guess the Life we saw was Life from the Loam was on Sam's side, so my mistake.
I think it seems clear that he's going to bring in the Submerges, and likely after seeing that Umazao's Jite bring in his Miser's Ancient Grudge.
Yeah. Spell Pierce probably makes it into the main deck as well, the second one.
What do you think about him bringing in Sulfuric Vortex? Probably a little too aggressive.
Yeah. I'm not a super big fan of that in this matchup. I mean, it's really good against like the Miracles decks and some of the slower, more control decks, but yeah, it's not the greatest right here.
So Sam Pardee looks like he's taking his second mulligan, going down to 5 cards here.
It's a rough beat.
In round 11. Remember, there's 3 more rounds after this, then we cut to a top 8, and we crown a champion here in Denver.
The Sam's deck is one that actually mulligans fairly well too. Like, the downside is you lose a bit of value in your Nibble Mongoose because you won't have as many spells available to you to get you to Threshold. But like with 4 Brainstorms, 4 Ponders, your mana situation isn't terrible. All you really need to do is go like Brainstorm or Ponder early, help fix things a little bit, drop a Delver or a Tarmogoyf, and you're kind of just off to the races at that point. Unfortunately, like Pat's deck is fairly well set up to combat starts like that because he's got the 4 lightning bolts, 3 abrupt decays, and he's got additional discard to just stick it to his opponent if he happens to stumble for any reason at all. Which is really, I mean, that's what Jund kind of does. It sticks it to you pretty good if you ever have any problems.
Okay, so let's see this 5-card hand from Sam. Force of Will, Lightning Bolt.
It's a near immediate sure, although he was down to 5, so I don't know how happy he would have been continuing to go down.
And Pat here on the play is going to crack Bloodstained Mire.
It's got to be a first turn Thoughtseize.
Yeah, especially against a multi-5 opponent.
Yeah. Could be Deathrite.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Badlands into Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's going to make you so happy. When you play Deathrite Shaman off of your own fetch land, and then your opponent goes first turn fetch land as well. It's going to be a little less happy when his opponent also goes first turn Lightning Bolt, but, you know, that's cool.
I think Sam just fetched and said, go.
Touché.
Or maybe he's going to cast Delver of Secrets or something.
All right.
Yeah, so
there's the Lightning Bolt. Stifle?
Wait, no, okay. Just said turn 1.
I'll take
land
it.
Go. Pat tried to Wasteland Volcanic Island that got stifled. Then Pat tried to Pyroblast the stifle, and Sam used Force of Will, removing Spell Pierce to counter the Pyroblast.
4 cards used so far in this fight over a Wasteland activation.
So, I mean, I don't think that, unless Sam's got another Pyroblast, it's going to resolve.
Yep.
Passes the turn back with Deathrite Shaman up. Ponder for Sam. Wow, he's really crawling his way out of that mulligan to 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the reason he kept open that stifle is, I mean, he's sitting on a 1-land hand, right?
Yeah.
So he needed to be able to protect himself against that Wasteland potentially.
But he did just draw Scalding Tarn off that Ponder. Crack that immediately. Go find another land. And this just shows you the power of the Rug decks, the Rug Delver decks.
It really does not take much to get them going. And look, he's already got 5 cards in his graveyard as well for when the time comes. If he does draw a Nimble Mongoose, it's immediately a 3/3.
Total interaction.
I mean, there is going to be some amount of cards being removed because that Deathrite Shaman is still on the table.
But Dismember is going to try to take out the Deathrite Shaman.
There we go.
And so it does. Sam falls to 13 to do so. 1 card left in his hand, passing it back to Pat Cox. Another Bloodstained Mire for Pat off the top is going to allow him to get a second land.
Let's see what he gets here.
Probably a Bayou. Yep.
Yeah. And it was Bayou and pass. So clearly cracked that because his opponent was tapped out of wishing to avoid a stifle.
Brainstorm for Sam. So Pat needs to get something going really quickly here. Well, Sam's without very many cards, but
Nimble Mongoose in threshold.
Yeah.
So
3/3 Shroud.
the heat is on. It's going to be a Liliana of the Veil.
Discard a creature or sacrifice a creature.
Yeah, possibly. Haven't gotten a very good look at Pat's hand, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Liliana. -2. Go ahead.
Creature may be untargetable, but you, sir, are not.
Players and commander event number
And now the +1 ability on Liliana starts to really, starts to really draw that last lightning bolt. There it is, found it.
That's good because Pat still has to discard, even though Sam does not.
It's a nice way to get value. Marshall's not here, someone's got to say the word. So Pat's up a few cards, to say the least at this point.
Nile Spellbomb. Remove all of your graveyard, Sam.
Resets the threshold and cycles a little bit.
Play my Wooded Foothills, fetch that. No stifle from you? Okay, I'll go get a land.
Yeah, Sam's sitting on 1 card in hand. It's either this, like, I'm pretty sure I saw a second lightning bolt. It's either the one that's in his hand or it's the top card of his deck. I'm not sure where he put it. But we shall see shortly, I suppose.
And Pat just passes it back. A Wasteland for Sam.
Interesting decision. Now, does he kill something to prevent Bloodbraid Elf, or does he?
I don't think he can. Okay. Bayou Taiga on Pat's side of the board. Then 2 mana Tarmogoyf maybe? Ooh, Umezawa's Jite. Draw go for Sam. And Liliana off the top. That's huge.
He's literally no time. No misdirection there.
Both discard. I'll discard an Abrupt Decay. You discard a Spell Snare. Draw go for Sam. Pat wants like a creature.
Liliana's still going to do work.
Hymn to Torque gets discarded for Pat. Force of Will for Sam. Draw go again. I assume Pat's sitting on land, like Bloodbraid Elf that he wants to cast, and if that's the case, that Verdant Catacombs is going to allow him to get a 4th land.
Yes, sir.
Ooh. So Pat cracked the Verdant Catacombs and then went to go look through his library. But Sam had a stifle for that.
Yeah, Judge just forced him to shuffle.
Yeah.
Gives him a warning for looking at cards.
Going a little too hastily.
Yeah.
And unlikely here that he's going to use Liliana. He doesn't. He passes it back to Sam. Sam's still on draw go. Hasn't played a spell on his own turn for a little while. Land off the top for Pat. Bloodbraid Elf Cascade into Liliana of the Veil.
Awkward.
Not going to cast it. That would kill my Liliana still.
Yeah.
And attacking for 3.
It's one of those situations where, I mean, Liliana's ultimate is not exactly amazing in this spot, but continuing to eat at your opponent's hand is perfectly fine. I have no problem playing Hellbent if I'm forcing my opponent to do it as well.
Especially when I've got Bloodbraid Elf and Jite in play.
Yeah, plus she's got a million counters on her to be used for that second activation if Sam actually does start getting one of his very small number of creatures into play.
Bloodbraid Elf hits a Lightning Bolt after being equipped to the Umezawa's Jite, and Sam draws Tarmogoyf that gets Abrupt Decay promptly at end of turn. 1 card in both players' hands. Pat's going to play his 5th land and force Sam to discard his only spell.
All right, so both players are playing off the top right now with a significant advantage going to Pat.
So Pat's going to...
Looks like a Bloodbraid.
Yep, Bloodbraid Elf number 2. Spin the wheel into Pyroblast.
Man, he's a Bloodbraid master.
And he's going to... Pyroblast can target anything. He's going to target that Volcanic Island just to get into his graveyard. And to turn Ancient Grudge is going to take out... Or middle of the turn, Ancient Grudge is going to take out the Umezawa's Jite. Pat just gets in for 3, dropping Sam down to 7. Another land for Sam. Pat's 3 turns away from taking this match. So Pat drew something. He's thinking what he wants to do. Just attack in with the Bloodbraid Elf.
Curious to see what he drew, actually.
After combat, does he have something?
Land, okay, yeah.
Land +1 Liliana.
It's a little more anticlimactic than I'd hoped it would be.
Brainstorm for Sam. Trying to dig his way out of this predicament.
Yeah. Has a potential 1 more chance also. No, he doesn't, because if he doesn't have something immediately,
just Tarmogoyf,
yeah,
but that Liliana's going to...
So that Misty Rainforest is total blank game, but that's it.
Lightning Bolt off the top will do it. Pat Cox wins the match 2-1, advances on to 10-1 here at Grand Prix Denver, defeating Sam